The lawyer's office was uncomfortably warm as my extended family crowded around the mahogany conference table for Grandpa Joe's will reading. Everyone was there, Uncle James and his wife Patricia, in designer farmwear. They probably bought just for this occasion. My cousins Mark and Lisa in their corporate suits, and various other relatives who hadn't visited Grandpa in years, but suddenly found time to attend his will reading. I sat quietly in my worn jeans and work boots, still with dirt under my fingernails, from morning chores at the veterinary clinic where I worked as the only large animal vet in 3 counties. I couldn't exactly take a day off to change clothes for this. And to my granddaughter Sarah Mitchell, I leave my farm property including all land buildings and equipment. Mr. Thompson, the lawyer paused as whispers erupted around the table. The old farm Uncle James's voice dripped with disdain. That's hardly fair distribution. The place is worthless. Hasn't produced a viable crop in years. I thought about the countless weekends I'd spent at that farm during my veterinary studies, helping Grandpa Joe tend to what he called his special project in the backfields. He'd been so secretive about those plants, never letting anyone but me. Near them, Joe was hardly in his right mind these past few years. Aunt Patricia added, patting her perfectly co-edited hair, wandering around that farm, muttering about his plants. Should have sold to that development company when he had the chance. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. The will is quite clear and legally sound. Ms. Mitchell also receives the contents of Mr. Crawford's private study, including all research materials and documentation that got my attention. Grandpa's study had been off-limits to everyone, even me. He'd spend hours in there making notes and talking on the phone with someone he only referred to as the Professor Research Materials. Mark snorted probably his collection of seed. Cataloguers and farmers' almanacs, what a waste. I remained silent, remembering Grandpa's last words to me 3 weeks ago. Sarah, girl. He'd said, his voice weak, but his eyes sharp as ever. Remember what I taught you about patience? Some things take time to grow, but the harvest is worth the wait after the will reading. Uncle James cornered me in the parking lot. Listen, Sarah, be reasonable. That farm's been losing money for years. The soil's degraded. The equipment's ancient. I'll give you $50,000 for it, more than it's worth. Really, save you the hassle of trying to sell it yourself. I looked at my uncle, really looked at him. He'd spent his life in boardrooms and country clubs building his real estate empire while mocking Grandpa's devotion to his worthless farm. No thank you, Uncle James, I said politely. I think I'll hold on to it. Don't be stubborn, he persisted. What do you know about farming? You're a vet, for God's sake. I know enough, I replied, thinking of all those weekends with Grandpa, learning things that went far beyond traditional farming, and I'm not selling. That evening I drove out to the farm, my farm now. The sunset painted the old Victorian farmhouse, in shades of gold and pink. It needed work, sure the paint was peeling. The porch, steps creaked, but it felt like home. Inside, everything was exactly as Grandpa had left it. His coffee mug still sat on the kitchen counter, his reading glasses folded neatly beside it. But it was his study I needed to see. The key was exactly where he told me I'd find it inside his favourite book, The Principles of Agricultural Genetics, tucked between pages 187 and 188. My hands trembled slightly as I unlocked the study door. The room was smaller than I remembered from childhood glimpses, but every surface was covered with papers, notebooks and scientific equipment. I didn't recognise the walls were lined with photographs of plants in various stages of growth, each meticulously labelled with dates and numbers. I sat at his desk and opened the top drawer. Inside was a letter addressed to me. Dear Sarah, if you're reading this, then the time has finally come. What we've been growing in the backfield isn't just another crop, it's something that could change everything. The professor and I have been working on this for 15 years, developing a strain of drought-resistant wheat that can thrive in poor soil conditions. But it's more than that. These plants don't just survive in bad soil. They heal it. Every harvest makes the soil better, richer, We've done it. Sarah, we've created a sustainable solution to soil degradation and food security. The patent application is already filed in your name. I put everything in motion months ago when the doctors told me how long I'd left. All the documentation is in the safe behind the east wall. Photograph, the combination is your mother's birthday. There's one more thing in 3 days. Professor Helena Jiang from the State Agricultural University will visit to test the latest crop. She's been my research partner all these years. Trust her, she'll help you understand everything we've built here. They'll all try to take this from you once they realise what it's worth. Don't let them love Grandpa Joe. My hands shook as I moved the photograph and opened the safe. Inside were folders of research data, legal documents, and correspondence with agricultural companies worldwide. The patent application alone was over 300 pages. As I read through the materials, my phone buzzed repeatedly. Texts from Uncle James, each one increasing his offer for the farm. He knew something, but how a knock at the door startled me. Through the window, I saw an unfamiliar car in the driveway. A woman in her 60s with silver hair stood on the porch, carrying a briefcase. "Miss Mitchell," she called out. "I'm Professor John. Your grandfather asked me to come." I took a deep breath and went to open the door. Whatever Grandpa had created in that backfield, whatever secrets this professor held, I had a feeling my life was about to change dramatically, and somewhere I could almost hear Grandpa Joe chuckling and reminding me about patience. Professor Helena Jiang didn't waste time with small talk. As soon as I let her in, she pulled out a tablet and started showing me data. "Your grandfather was brilliant," she said, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "We've been testing this wheat strain for 3 years now. The results are beyond anything we expected." She pulled up a series of satellite images, showing the backfield's transformation. What had once been dusty, depleted soil now showed rich, dark earth teeming with life. "The plants don't just grow in poor soil," she explained. "They actively regenerate it. The root system produces enzymes that break down contaminated soil components while fixing nitrogen at unprecedented rates. Each harvest leaves the soil better than before." I thought about all those secret weekends with Grandpa watching him carefully tend to his mysterious crops. "How valuable is this exactly?" Professor Yang smiled. "Sarah, do you know how many agricultural regions worldwide are dealing with soil degradation? How many countries are struggling to feed their populations because their farmland is becoming unusable?" Before she could continue, the sound of tires on gravel interrupted us through the window. I saw 3 expensive cars pulling up. "Uncle James, Aunt Patricia, and my cousins right on time," Professor John said grimly. "Your grandfather warned me this might happen. Someone at the patent office must have leaked the application details." I squared my shoulders and went to meet my family. They burst in without waiting for an invitation. "Sarah," Uncle James said smoothly, "I've been trying to reach you. I've got a much better offer. $2 million for the farm right now. All cash, $2 million. I raised an eyebrow this morning. It was only $50,000. "What changed, Uncle James?" He faltered slightly, but recovered quickly, just trying to be generous. "Family, helping family. Really." I gestured to Professor Jiang. "Maybe we should ask Professor Jiang about the actual value of Grandpa's wheat strain, the one that can regenerate dead soil and potentially transform global agriculture." The colour drained from his face behind him. Mark and Lisa exchanged worried glances. "Now see here," Aunt Patricia stepped forward, her designer boots clicking on the hardwood floor. "Your grandfather was in no state to make reasonable decisions about his property. We'll contest the will. You can't possibly manage something of this magnitude." Professor Jean cleared her throat. "Actually, Mrs. Wheeler-Sarah is perfectly positioned to manage this project. She has a doctorate in veterinary medicine, which means she already understands the biological principles involved. Moreover, she's been helping with the research for years, though she might not have realised it. I hadn't, not fully. But now all those weekends of careful measurements, soil samples, and detailed observations made sense. Grandpa had been training me all along." The patent application is already approved, I said quietly. It was filed months ago in my name. Grandpa made sure everything was legally sound. You can't do this alone. Uncle James tried one last time. You need business expertise, connections. Let us help. We can form a family corporation. No, my voice was firm. I'm not alone. I have Professor Jiang and her team, and I have Grandpa's research partners at universities worldwide. The only thing I need from you is to leave this isn't over, he threatened, storming out the others. Followed Aunt Patricia pausing only to give me a look that could have wilted Grandpa's wheat after they left. Professor Jung touched my arm. Are you ready to see the latest test results? We've been running trials in drop-stricken regions of 3 continents over the next few hours. She showed me everything the global research network Grandpa had built. The promising results from test sites worldwide, the pharmaceutical companies interested in the enzymes, the plants produced. Your grandfather didn't just create better wheat. She explained he might have found a way to reverse decades of environmental damage. The implications for global food security are staggering. My phone kept buzzing calls from agricultural companies, research institutions. Even a few governments' word was spreading fast. Later that evening, after Professor Jiang left, I sat in Grandpa's study reading through his research journals. His notes weren't just scientific observations, they were filled with his hopes for the future, his dreams of helping farmers worldwide restore their land. A knock at the door interrupted my reading. It was Jenny, my assistant from the vet clinic, Sarah. The whole town's talking about what's happening out here, and there's a line of reporters at the end of your driveway. I sighed, so much for keeping things quiet. Also, she added, your uncle's been calling around, trying to find anyone. Will say your grandfather was mentally unfit when he wrote his will. I smiled, remembering the detailed research notes, the careful patent applications. The global network of scientists let him try. Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. The next few months were a whirlwind. We set up a proper research facility in the old barn, hired a team of agricultural scientists, and expanded the test plots. Universities worldwide wanted to collaborate, and small farmers began piloting the wheat in their own fields. Uncle James tried everything: lawsuits, smear campaigns, even attempting to bribe members of our research team. Nothing worked. The patents were solid, the research was revolutionary, and most importantly, the wheat was producing results that couldn't be ignored 1 year after the will reading. I stood in the backfield watching our first full-scale harvest. The wheat glowed golden in the sunset, each stalk heavy with grain that could help heal the earth. Professor Yang joined me, her tablet displaying results from our global test sites. Your grandfather would be proud, she said softly. We're seeing soil recovery rates that were thought impossible. He knew what he was doing, I replied, running my hands through the wheat, not just with the science, but with everything. Later that week, I received an unexpected visitor. I'm Patricia. She came alone, looking uncomfortable in practical clothes. For once, the farm looks good, she said awkwardly. I found some old photos of your grandfather from when he first started farming here. Thought you might want them. I invited her in for coffee as we looked through the photos. She spoke softly. We were wrong about him, about you. James is still angry, but I had to come see what Joe built here. I showed her the research facility, explained the project in terms she could understand. By the time she left, something had shifted between us. The following spring, we hosted our first regenerative agriculture conference. Farmers from around the world came to learn about Grandpa's wheat and its soil healing properties. I watched them walk the fields, hoping their eyes as they saw what was possible. Uncle James and my cousins didn't attend, of course. Last I heard, they were busy trying to launch their own agricultural research company. Good luck to them. Some things can't be rushed or bought in Grandpa's study, which I've kept exactly as it was. I often sit and read his journals. One entry particularly stands out. The real value of land isn't in what you can sell it for. It's in what you can grow there, not just crops, but hope, innovation, change. Sarah understands this. She'll know what to do when the time comes. He was right. I did know what to do because he taught me the most important lesson of all. True worth isn't always visible on the surface. Sometimes you have to dig deeper. Be patient and trust that what you're growing will change the world. Last week, a young farmer from a job-stricken region sent us photos of his first harvest using our wheat. The joy in his face, the pride in his restored fields. That's Grandpa's real legacy in the end. The farm wasn't worthless at all. It was priceless, not for its monetary value, but for what it could give to the world, and that's something no amount of money could ever buy. As I walk the fields each evening watching the wheat sway in the breeze, I think about patience and growth and the different kinds of harvest life brings. Sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't what people can see. At first glance, sometimes it's hidden in the soil, waiting for the right person to help it grow. And sometimes, just sometimes, those worthless things turn out to be exactly what the world needs.